Hey, welcome back. This is going to be part 3, which is setting it up in CleanFlight and tuning a little bit to get you ready to go fly up in the air. Okay, first thing you need to do is go get CleanFlight. It's available as a Google app. And also, if you chose BL Heli ESCs, get the BL Heli suite. I highly recommend it so it's easier to configure everything. It's a free download, and once you get all done, we'll continue from there. Alright, if you haven't done so already, you gotta get a cable. It's an Android cable. It plugs right into the Naze32 board and connects right on through your USB port. Alright, you're gonna connect it right up. Whatever communication port it's on, it's gonna pop up. This one in case it's 4, and hit firmware flasher. You're gonna select the board, which is Naze32, and select the latest software for it, which is right here, 1.13. And then hit load firmware online, and then flash firmware. And it'll take a second to flash it, and be good to go. Alright, it says successful, so we're going to move on to the next step. You hit connect, and then it'll show a little screen that shows you like a little model of the craft, and we know some things are a little off, so we're going to change that. The first is, since we rotated the orientation, we have to go configure that in configuration, and we moved it counterclockwise to the left, so we need to change that in yaw and make that a negative 90 degrees. And we're also going to make sure it's set on quad X. The receiver is a PWM receiver, which is like standard. We're going to hit motor stop and one shot 125 for the ESCs. And that is about all we need for this part. Don't need to touch any of the other settings, and hit save and reboot. It's very important. Or else you're going to lose all of your settings. Alright, next we can go to receiver. And for this we actually need a battery. Depending on the version of the Naze you have, it might be different, but for this one, older generations need the battery plugged in to actually be able to receive signal from the receiver. I'll plug it in real quick. And you notice there's a bunch of twitching going on, and we're going to use the trims on the controller to set everything close to 1500 as you can. If there's still a little twitching, it's okay. Just get as close as possible. And this one you need to wiggle the sticks a little bit. That's one of the downsides of this transmitter, is always a little bit of wiggle on there. But it works for how cheap it is. Alright, I think that's pretty close. Make sure your throttle goes all the way up, and the auxiliary is working. Alright, looks pretty good. And since it's twitching a little bit, we're going to set the RC dead band to around 5. Then make sure whenever it jitters a little bit, it needs a minimum command in order to actually be able to do something with it. I like leaving the RC rate and expo where it is. It's usually good to have a little bit expo just in case, so that way it's a little bit soft in the middle, and when you hit the edges of the sticks, it goes full circle. Alright, and hit save again. And then now we can move on to the PIDs. A lot of people are not sure what PIDs do. Basically, they're there to tell your craft if it receives a certain amount of signal input from the transmitter to react a certain way, and how strongly to react. I personally didn't mess with these too much until you're more comfortable with them. What you're going to want to focus on is the roll rate, pitch rate, and yaw rate. You're going to bump those up a little bit, because it's going to start out really slow and soft and not really move the craft very much in either direction. But when you bump these up, they're going to roll much faster and react a lot stronger. You can always adjust them higher or lower depending on how comfortable you are with them. but I recommend bumping it up a little bit until you're more comfortable. For this one, I'm going to set it to about 4. Just because I'm not sure how this specific craft is going to react. So 4 across the board. If you feel like anything acting weird, then you can adjust it later. And then you're going to hit save again. And now we're going to go into the motors tab. The motors tab is just to make sure that everything is set up correctly and how you can test your motors. And this is very important. Make sure your props are off before you get to this point, or otherwise you're going to get in for a really nasty surprise. So once your motors are off, hit I understand, all props are removed, and then just test the motors, bring them up, and they're going to spin up, just like that. And 1, 2, that's 3, 4. Let me try 3 again because it sounds weird. It sounds actually pretty good. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and calibrate them. The way to do that for the Naze Revision 5 is take the power off the battery, hit the master, make sure it's all the way to the top, and then plug the battery in. They're going to give a quick... That's a signal to make sure that they're ready to synchronize. Now we're going to pull it all the way down. Alright, and that shows that they should all be synchronized. Now we just want to disconnect the battery, and then we move on. Alright, now we go back to setup to make sure that everything looks good. When you push the nose of the craft up, it should have the nose of the craft up in the little model right here. We're also going to calibrate the accelerometer, which is basically has to be a flat surface to make sure it's level on there, and hit calibrate and just leave it alone. Don't touch anything until it's done, and it will be set. Alright, looks like it's done, and it looks about all I needed to do. Now's also a good time to set your modes, which you do need the receiver for, the transmitter, so you need a battery for this one. Alright, and we're going to hit ARM, and we're going to find a range. We're going to set this to our auxiliary on our transmitter, and it looks like this is set in the perfect range, so I'm going to add that. And then we want another one, depending on how you feel. I like having one for air mode, but if you're not advanced, you don't feel like you're ready for that yet, you can have one for horizon mode, which keeps it at a certain level, and once you let go of the sticks, it'll level it for you again. And we're going to set that to auxiliary 2. Alright, and it looks like it's also set up. I'm going to adjust this just a little bit, just to make sure there's no errors accidentally. Alright, and then we're going to hit save. We're going to exit out of that tab, and then go back. And now it should light up whenever you're in that area. It should light up green. Be careful not to touch the throttle when you do that, because you can spin up the motors just by hitting ARM. And you don't really want that. So yeah, just avoid, never put on your props when you're messing with computer stuff. You're going to have a bad time. But everything looks good here so far. I'm going to hit save again just in case. And now we can disconnect. Alright, now what I like to do is to go the extra step and go to the BL Heli setup, which is right here. BL Heli Suite. Run that. And it's going to give you a screen that looks like this. It's going to be very confusing at first, but you take a second to learn it and it will make all the difference in your quad. So we're going to hit select Amtel Scilabs interface, go down to Scilabs BL Heli bootloader through CleanFlight, and so that way instead of connecting each ESC individually, you can just run it through your flight board all connected up. And we're going to hit connect. And Oops, forgot to set the this is the COM. Okay, so make sure it's COM4. Now hit connect, and it detected our ESCs. So we're gonna hit check, and it'll give us all the ESCs, and it even tells you which ESC you have, which are recognized as little bees. Alright, and it tells us they're not in sync. So now we need to sync them up. What I like to do is set the settings for the first one, and then make that the setting for all of them. So they're all exactly the same. You don't need to touch with the throttle or anything, but what I like to do is set the damped to damped light, which is basically active braking for the motors. Don't mess with the motor timing. I'd say set the beacon delay to 5 minutes, so if you lose your quad, it'll start beeping after 5 minutes of being on. And then we just hit, let's see, oh, this is ESC too. Alright, beacon strength, beacon delay, damped light, and we just hit, make sure it's on your master or number 1, and hit right setup, and it will, oh, it'll actually write them to all of them. So now we hit check again, and not in sync with master. So the master, bear with me guys, 1 second. Maybe damped light, right setup. Okay, now just make sure when you write them all that they're all listed 1, 2, 3, 4 on the bottom, and when you write them. So now they're all in sync, have the exact same settings, and you won't run into any errors. Yeah, that's all you need to do, and then you're good to go. And now you can close out the software. It'll give you a nice little tune to make sure it's all set up, and now you can disconnect the battery. Alright, so I forgot to mention something we need to do in CleanFlight. We go back down into failsafe and make sure that it's set to drop, so that way if you lose signal with your controller for whatever reason, it's just going to drop to the ground and not spin up or anything. Alright, I forgot to mention, before you put your props on, you're going to want to go back into the BL Heli Suite and check your motor orientations. They have a nice little tab here for motors, and this one's going to want to spin clockwise, counterclockwise, counterclockwise, and clockwise. So the two opposite ones always spin in the same direction. You can just check that in the motor tab real quick. Oh, you gotta connect the battery for that. Duh. Alright, so it looks like this is spinning clockwise. So since I set them all up the same way, straight onto the board, they're all gonna spin clockwise. And you can just double check that. So I need to switch 2 of them. You can easily do that in the interface. Hit connect. Check the ESCs. Alright, so we're going to switch 2 and 4. And we're going to go up here, and there is motor direction. Going to hit reverse. And then write that setup. This is operating update. Okay. Check. Motor reversed. We got one of them reversed. We need to go to 4 now. Hit 4. Go to reversed. Right setup. Alright. Now check them all. And 2 and 4 should be reversed. Now we're going to go back to the motor tab and check that again. Alright. 1's clockwise. 2 is counterclockwise. 3 is clockwise. Whoops, I'm sorry, it's supposed to be 3. Never mind. So, always double check. Check on. So, 4 needed to be normal. And I accidentally did that backwards. And 3 needed to be reversed. Alright, that's set up. Alright, now we're going to check it. So 2 and 3 should be reversed. Check the motor tab. Alright, hit yes. 1 is clockwise. 4 should also be clockwise. 2 is counterclockwise. 3 is counterclockwise. Alright, so that's all we needed to do. Now we can actually put on our props. First, disconnect the battery. Alright, and we can disconnect it from the computer. Make sure if your propeller says R on it, it means you're gonna it's gonna be on the right hand side or clockwise. So you spin it on the motors number 1 and 4. And if they don't have an R on them, that means they're spin counterclockwise, which is number 2 and 3. Alright, just make sure they're nice on there. And you can tighten them up on with the prop nuts. Or if you have them, I recommend getting the M3 or M3 size lock nuts, which are actually very handy, and you can find them pretty much anywhere. So if you lose one of these, you can just place it with one of those fairly easily. Alright, and just tighten them up. I have to use a hex wrench for this because they fit nicely into the holes. And just give it a nice, firm tightening, and it should be good to go. Alright, now we're going to go for our maiden flight. Alright, so now that we've gone to the clean flight and set up all of the settings and set the failsafe and the rates, it's time to get it started and do a test flight. You're going to want to go back and forth, left and right, and try to yaw a little bit so that way you can get a feel of how fast the quad reacts and how well it reacts. And if it feels too sluggish to you, bump up the rates a little bit and it should be rectile fine. You're going to want if you have enough space, try to do a quick loop. But if you don't have enough space, just go back and forth, left and right, and just see how fast it goes and set it to your liking. Just don't touch the PIDs yet. That isn't until like further on. You probably won't even need them yet. So, alright, let's get started. Alright, that felt good, but it was a little sluggish for my taste, so I'm going to bump up the rates. And it should be good. So you call your steps. Should have a nice little racer.